Warning, this podcast typically features spoilers and strong opinions. Proceed with caution. Hello and welcome back to Then a Moment, the podcast where two lifelong storytellers talk about stories. I'm Pavi Proczko, audiobook narrator, author, actor, etc.
And I am Colin Funk, childhood development expert and teaching artist. I forgot what I was.
It's been a long week. And today we're going to be talking about Theater Camp, the movie. But
with
first,
a special nod.
oh yes,
to,
we got stuff. We got stuff about this.
Okay. Surprises, secrets.
Surprises. But first, let's talk about moment of the week.
Okay.
I'll go first.
Okay.
So we've been catching up on our summer mysteries. We've got After Party and we have Only Murders in the Building. Love both of them. Only Murders is what I want to talk about. There is a moment in Only Murders on this episode that I am confused. I don't know what it is, but there's Steve Martin's character. Yes, Steve Martin's character is having like trouble performing on stage as they're trying to like make this.
Well, he's a patter song, and it's a lot of words.
It's a lot of words, and so
he's
he
getting
like
flustered.
Yeah, he's getting flustered, and they tried to like justify this flustering. They tried to kind of like manifest it as his brain goes into like the white room. He's like dressed all in white, and he is in this white room painting it white, and there's like frames of white photos, and everything's white. And then he comes to from this white room, and everything is chaos, and he doesn't have any recollection of what he's done. And first of all, Steve Martin looks terrible in white. Suddenly looks his age. He's wearing white, which is so weird.
That was the first thing we said.
I was like, oh my God. Oh. But also, they did this weird thing for the first one where they had him like do his patter song, and he's like not wearing pants at the end, and he's got everything is like hanging upside down, and he's like
after the white room.
He
comes to,
yeah, he comes to, everything is chaos, and they're all like, oh my God. And he's like, what happened? And they were like, oh, you went to the white room. As if all of these actors know what this is. Now, I've been a performer for a long time. I have never heard of this white room before.
Yeah, we were both
theater
majors.
We both
were musical theater performers for years.
I get the idea that like, I don't even remember what's happened on stage. Like that is, it's like something's like, yeah, I was just like, I just kind of went blank and like did a thing, and I'm not sure.
We call that crossing over.
Yeah,
when,
crossing over. But it was this,
over.
Yeah, it was this like white room idea. And what bothered me so much about this moment was instead of just having it be Steve Martin's characters, idiosyncratic, like, I don't know, I was in a white room suddenly and now I don't remember anything. It was just the way that he crosses over and kind of has his blank out and then comes back. He's like, what did I say? I don't remember. Instead, they had to make it like this weird canonical thing that every actor in the room knows about. And I contest this.
Well, is that something? I mean, like, we can ask our audience, like, you understand, like, if you have heard of this white room before, which I have not.
Never, ever in my life have I heard about this.
But if it's like a thing that people know about, let us know. Because we have no idea.
I'm willing to be corrected, but right now I stand in protest of this whole concept. That's my moment.
Well, and I'm going to have a separate moment, but because I thought we were going to do a different moment, because there was another moment in Only Murders that was also connected to theater. One of the best monologues.
Oh my God. You're right.
Ever in the show. It's so good. The producers of the show has been canceled, and Martin Short's character has this idea to turn the show into a musical to get it back up and running again. And one of the producers just is like, oh, you need a showstopper, and goes into, and she's like,
oh my God, this monologue is brilliant.
About, do you have a showstopper? Because a showstopper is, and it's describing what a showstopper is. And it is so
like through the lens of Debbie from Duluth. Debbie from Duluth is like spending
injected straight into Debbie from Duluth.
And how she will like happily spend, every penny, her life's savings, to go just see that show with that one song. The whole monologue is brilliant. You're right. I totally forgot about that.
And the way it's just dead serious.
Oh, we watched it like 4 times.
We did. We watched it in a row. We're like, oh,
it's like this is the best description of like what happens for musicals and like how to make it sell.
Yeah, that's commercialism part of musical theater.
Yes,
very distinctly
Debbie from Duluth. Oh my God, it's so good.
It's excellent. Anyway,
that is not your moment. What's your moment?
My moment. I got to see an understudy run of Next to Normal at the Paramount, which is a local theater here in Chicago, not in Chicago, but in Aurora.
Yeah, it's one of the bigger houses here, yeah.
But yeah.
It's big. It's like 2,500
It's a Chicago house,
seats.
but it's in Aurora, which is just, it's outside of Chicago.
Yeah.
But I saw the understudy run because my friend Michelle was in it, and she was brilliant. Michelle's excellent.
And she played
Diane, the main woman in Next to Normal. And just if you ever have a chance to see an understudy run, please do it, because understudies work very hard, and I swear they have something to prove every time. We saw an understudy run of Tick, Tick, Boom.
Yes, we did.
And
it was great.
Brilliant. Excellent.
Yeah.
What theater company was that?
I don't
remember. It was at The Edge,
right? The Edge, yeah.
But I don't remember what company that... another Milliken alum, Beau Fraser, had directed it. That's all I know.
Yeah, it was good.
But it was just like all the actors were trans. But the understudies were all so excellent.
Yeah, and they like had done all of the work, and this really came kind of guns blazing.
Because and they're nice and fresh, and they're like so excited. Anyway, so I saw this understudy run, and I knew Michelle, I knew Devin DeSantis, I knew Andrew Sickle, I knew some of I'm like, oh, I still know people in theater. All excellent. And made me cry a lot. The whole show is very emotional. This time I watched, there's a lot of thinking, and since the last time I've seen it, I think my tastes have changed a bit. So I think watching it, I'm like, there's parts of this that the story is not as like clean as I remember it being.
Yeah.
The music is really, some of the music is really excellent. And it is some of the most effective moments in musical theater, like that. Just, it doesn't matter how, because I saw a not amazing production of it years and years ago.
I remember I saw that one. Same one. Before we knew each other.
We knew each other, yes.
We had mutual cast friend mate people.
Yeah. That production wasn't excellent, but I still remember leaving and being like, wow, that really moved me.
Yeah.
It's a very moving piece, even when it's not done amazingly. And this was done very well. And like Michelle, I swear, was on the verge of tears the whole time, and I don't know how she does it, because that's just like a lot. It's like so emotionally raw. I don't understand it, but she is also a mother, and I think just like having that at the tip of your brain like is helpful, and it does like put you in an emotional place.
Yeah, for a show with parents who've lost a child, or that can be
spoilers.
Speaking of
which,
you've been warned.
As brilliant as Michelle was, the moment I'm thinking is there's so much focus on the character Diane and how and her mental health and the trauma from her loss, but also from her past and her parents and all of this other mental health. All these struggles that she's had throughout her life with mental health. And finally we get to the end, and a big part of the show is that her son, who has been deceased since infancy, still appears to her. as like and ages with him. So he shows up as this like 18-year-old son throughout the show, and he's a character. And everyone else is like, he's not there. You're making him up. He's not there. And at the end, Diane finally leaves her husband, and her husband's like sitting there and kind of grieving and thinking about everything, and has this moment where the son starts singing for the audience to realize at some point that like this image of the son wasn't just her ghost. It wasn't just her imagination. He's also dealing with grief, and like they have a moment where the son just like grabs onto him and they start singing together, and it's very clear that he is not fully grieved the loss of his child, just like his wife has, even though his character has been trying to get his wife to grieve. And that part where we find out that the dad is still grieving, it always like, I don't know what it is, but it launches me into like ugly sobbing.
It's really like very affecting.
I'm like, just like, I'm trying not to like get emotional thinking about it, because it's like one of those things where I'm like, if I just think about it, it's too much.
The image is so strong.
It is a strong image, and there's a lot of like reveals in that show.
Yeah.
But since it's been a musical for so long, it's like, yeah, we know that they start the show and the son is just like part of the family, and there's reveals like he's been dead.
Yeah, and everybody knows that.
It's like, but everyone
and it's not
knows
that is a reveal that is not as affecting once it's kind of like in the zeitgeist,
right.
While something like the dad is also seeing him the whole time is something that it's just that is affecting every time. Mm-hmm. It's very, again, Orpheus and Eurydice. It's very,
it is
it's very like every time Eurydice turns around or Orpheus turns around and see Eurydice, I know it's happening and know it's going to come, but it's surprising every time.
Yeah.
There's just something about me. That reveal.
And I knew it was coming.
Yeah.
And it gets me every time.
Yeah.
And it was well done, well executed. I mean, I think Devin DeSantis is excellent. Good. He was in the Into the Woods that we
panned. We did pan it, but
no, we did.
But the one in Paramount, that we saw.
He's excellent
good.
in that.
He's very good.
He's excellent always.
Wonderful. Shall we get to it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, we are talking about Theater Camp.
Quick synopsis.
This is it's a film. It was written by Noah Galvin, Molly Gordon, Nick Lieberman, directed by Molly Gordon and Nick Lieberman. I believe Molly's one of the stars too.
Yes.
And it stars Ben Platt as well as one of the producers. And so if you know any of these people, you'll know that it is about a theater camp, and it's very like heavily musical theater. So the premise is there is this theater camp. I don't actually know where. I imagine somewhere upstate New York. Adirondacks, right? Because it's called Adirondacks. So upstate New York.
Yes.
And the owner and the woman who runs it,
played by Amy Sedaris,
falls into a coma, and the mantle gets passed to her son to run the camp, but the camp is in dire straits financially, so it's following her son's story, trying to get the camp off the ground and trying to like use his social media wiles to get it up and running, and it follows and his business acumen, and then it also follows the teachers at the camp, including Ben Platt and his best friend who've been coming every year. There's a teacher who has lied on her resume and is there to like teach stage combat but doesn't even know what it is. And there's
mask work and a couple of other things.
Right. Yeah, like physical theater stuff. And then Gavin is the tech director who is like a secret talent. And so it's this 3-week camp where they're trying to like build this musical about the woman who is in a coma, because they do an original musical every year, and they're trying to write this thing. And it explores artists teaching versus doing the work that they are presumably teaching. And it's shot in a documentary style, sort of.
Yeah, it is.
And so at the end, they get funding by happenstance to like save the camp, even though there's like people poaching the land. Amy Sedaris wakes up right at the end, and everyone lives happily ever after. As some of the teachers go to work outside of this camp, some stay to be the teachers that they're meant to be, etc.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and it smacks of an old movie called Camp.
Yeah.
I don't remember what year that came out.
Came out in 2003.
2003. 20 years later, another Camp comes out. And it's, obviously feels like that because it's about theater camp. But
Right.
Why don't you tell us about Camp?
Okay. Yeah. First of all, I'm curious. Do you know if a theater camp is based on a particular camp? Because I know that Camp in 2003 was based off of Stage Door, which is a real camp.
No, I don't know. We can look that up.
Yeah, you'll look that up while I talk about Camp.
You talk about Camp.
So Camp, that one made in 2003 was similarly about a theater camp, but instead of following the employees, it really is following the children. It opens up on one of the kids that are just going to the camp getting beat up because he wore drag to his prom and wasn't let in, and it's about these outcast children who are at this camp together, and similarly they're putting on shows, but we're really watching the kids kind of find who they are and deal with kind of where they fit in socially at the camp versus outside, how they're building kind of this family at camp separately to the families that aren't supportive of them at home, and how there's like this straight boy who's joined them, and how he's like an outsider but trying to fit in, but he has his own problems, but he doesn't really fit in as an outcast. So it's a little bit confusing for all the characters, and they just kind of, they end up like changing the heart of one of their counselors, who is a washed out composer who they convinced to do a review of their show, and then Stephen Sondheim shows up, and similarly everyone lives happily ever after after the last performance.
Yeah. Incidentally, this theater camp is only loosely based on real events, and it has more to do with like the friendship of the writers who all went to camps together. So it's not so much like a location, but
specific camp.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Just that they were friends since they were like 3.
Right.
Yes. So we have these 2 films about theater camps.
Yeah. And I cannot imagine that they made theater camp without thinking they might
intersect there. It's such like a culty theater kid movie.
Yeah.
Camp is. It's like, anyone who went to theater school between 2000 and 2010, I'm sure watched it. It stars like Anna Kendrick's in it, a really, really young
and
Anna
Robin
Kendrick.
DeJesus, who went on to In the Heights and Hamilton fame.
Yep. So what did we know going into this? Did you ever do any theater camps or anything?
I did. So I did like a day camp when I was young, and there was a drama section of camp, but it wasn't like a sleepaway we put on music. Like this was like at our day camp, half the day we would go and do some other things. So 1 year or 2 of the years I just did horseback riding, but 1 year I did the drama. My older sister had done a few more years of the drama, but essentially like whoever, like the 5-10 kids who went would put on a show, whatever. And when I did it, it was The Ugly Duckling, I think. And I played the Big Bad Wolf because it was a bunch of like fairy tale characters together. so we did put on a show, but it was very, I don't know if it was written or if they made it up. I have no clue. But that's the closest to it, but it's nothing like either of these two movies.
Did you ever do like a sleepaway camp for multiple weeks where you're like away?
Did. So I guess technically in high school, I did a choir camp for, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks. I did Illinois youth music. So there's choir, there was other like band and stuff. So I did something similar. Not to that, like we had a choir concert. But there was, it was at U of I, and we would sleep over and
that's pretty long, like two weeks, 3 weeks.
2 or 3 weeks. Yeah. It was the first time I ever was away from home for any amount of time. Junior into senior year of high schol.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
I did
camp because it's scout camp, which especially the younger years were more reminiscent of like what theater camp is like, where you're in like the barracks and you've got like little bunks or you have cots that you sleep on. And you have like the counselors are like doing little classes and teaching you little like crafts and things. It's very like cliche summer camp in a lot of ways, especially like the younger
Parent Trap
years.
is what I picture.
Yeah, the younger years especially. So the older years end up being like very paramilitary. It's like a different thing entirely. But
Ukrainians.
I know, Ukrainian scout camp, Plast, Skob. So I also never really did like a theater camp, but I did do the IMEA All-Stars musical, the All-State musical. That was the Ragtime. I was in Ragtime back in 2005. And so that was like once a month, there would be like a full weekend that we would be rehearsing, like Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday. That we would rehearse all day.
Oh, weird.
It wasn't like sleepaway necessarily, though a lot of kids, because it was all over the state, they were coming from, the southern tip of Illinois and had to drive all the way up, so they would stay with someone. So there was like a lot of people that were just around in the neighborhood. So it was a lot of like concentrated time together, putting a show together with effectively counselors, because it was like the music director and the choreographer, and the director and other kind of helping hands. The rehearsal was kind of a nightmare. But those two things together combined, like my scouting camp stuff and theater camp, I kind of get the vibe. It's like there's a lot of things that intertwine.
Right. I just think like theater school in general,
yeah,
there's a lot of even like theater programs in college. They have similar vibes to some of like the way that any kind of theater teacher. A lot of theater teachers speak the same way, and there's a lot of hyperbolizing the way that these counselors and teachers are speaking in a way that it's not really hyperbole. Yeah, there's like, that feels ridiculous.
It's not quite,
and it's
as
not
far off from the mark as we'd like.
Absolutely. Like both films, because we rewatched Camp and like right before we went to see theater camp. And I'm like, this is like, it's still it's so close to how these teachers actually, how I've heard teachers and even professional directors in the real world hiring people. I've heard people talk like this in a way that I'm like, this is uncomfortably close to reality. Yeah.
And like having years apart and being able to like look at it as an audience member highlights how inappropriate some of this stuff is, or just how bonkers. It's just like batshit crazy stuff that in any other circumstance, no one would accept.
Right.
And in this, for some reason, we're okay with it.
Well, and it's different too, because I do feel some of the absurdity in camp is different than some of the absurdity in
theater camp.
Yes. There are things that are kind of like out of the theater zeitgeist. Like we're not, like theater teachers aren't hyper fixated on appearance. in a way that they used to be.
Right. Yeah.
And very strict like gender roles.
Right. Now it's the opposite, in fact. Like, there would be a lot of like encouragement of kind of gender bending and
just free gender expression in general.
The tastes have changed for sure in those 20 years. It is a different, the requirements are different. I guess maybe we should keep going down that line. What else strikes you as like the real material differences between those two? It's like where does the focuses look different?
The biggest difference is the focus. I think camp was really focused on the students, the campers, and the theater camp was really focused on the counselors.
Right.
We're not following the campers and their story. It's not their story.
Right.
In camp,
we see some of them, but we don't really care so
stories.
Much. Yeah.
In a way that I found the original camp like very endearing, that even when they're like awkward or doing weird things, I'm like, but they're learning, they're growing. And theater camp gave it to me in a way that I'm like, wow, this is like very uncomfortable. I know these people that haven't like
I've met those people.
Yeah.
Many of those people.
That they have to keep giving themselves this like one of the big plot points is Ben Platt's character really wants them to stay and be teachers, and him and Molly Gordon's character are like they're best friends forever. They do everything together, and one of the things they decided together was that they were going to focus on teaching. They're just going to be teachers until the right time, the quote unquote right time.
Right.
And there was, it just like, there's this like, you know, I work with I'm a teaching artist myself, obviously. And so like, and I teach theater, and there's a part of me that, you know, like I have almost made this choice. Yeah. I run theater camps. I teach theater. Like that's what I do. I work with babies mostly. So it's not the same, like exact path. Yeah. But I have chosen to focus on children and not, theater itself. Right. Like performing. And there's something that, that feels very true to me watching it and being like, it's hard to watch because it's these people that kind of feel stuck. Yeah. That don't feel like they're honest with themselves or each other about what they're actually choosing and what they're doing. They're not saying there's this like, no, we're just doing this for now because this is the best way to do it. Instead of saying like, right now, I don't like this. I don't like auditioning. I don't like this. I'm going to focus on this. And if this other thing, there's this like, you have to put on an air of, you don't want to ever say, I've quit. Right. That's like a big no-no when you work in theater. Like, oh, you gave up. You gave up. Right. See, if you had just not given up. And the thing is, the reality is that theater is small. There's only so many theaters, very few professional theaters, even fewer that pay living wages. And they don't have very many jobs, and you can't work at the same one forever. And there are always more actors every year. And every year, the programs increase their sizes. We're getting more and more people that are going into theater degrees, into performance degrees, and less jobs every year, especially since the pandemic. Many professional theaters have closed or are shutting down or are losing money. Yeah. And just like the reality is there is not enough money for everyone who wants to be a theater performer to do it. Yeah. There just isn't. And it's certainly not giving up to say, I'm choosing things that are stable, even though I love performing, and I'm seeing that job is not what I want. Right. Fighting for different jobs. Because I was performing in lots of different ways, and I was making my own opportunities, and I was working in different ways to make money, and eventually I was trying to do it all in performance. And I just decided I didn't like the piece that was auditioning.
Yeah.
For now, for that kind of thing.
Right. Well, and nothing is ever forever too. Like you could retire and say I quit and then go back and do it again. Like there is no actual shame in doing that. It doesn't.
And this movie really highlighted this world that I still see so many people that are like afraid to take a step back and choose something else.
Yeah.
And at the same time, the people that have taken a step back and been like, oh, we're teaching, like trying to pull people with them to not feel like they've given up.
Yeah.
It's just like instead of, there's this weird thing in theater where it's like you're supportive, but you're not, where you're happy for people unless they're doing better than you.
Sort of. Yeah. Or there's always a jealousy component to it.
It's hard.
And you have, in order to like maintain those relationships, sometimes it feels like there's a pressure to be on the same level and to not succeed. And even in this film, we have the, what's her name? Molly's character.
I don't remember that character's name.
I don't remember anybody, Amos and something. But they tried to audition for Juilliard and he didn't get in, and he thought that she also didn't get in, and they were like, oh, we didn't get in together, so we went to this other school together, and then we did this teaching thing. But turns out she did get a call back. Not that she got in, but she did get a call back, and she didn't go. She declined in order to maintain this relationship.
Right.
And part of that is like, well, the relationship is more important than that, and that might have been true, but it's also very codependent in order to like not make waves there and to ensure that she still has this support, and to feel safer. Sometimes it's safer not to even try so that you don't fail. There is something really interesting about that in theater camp, that feeling of we're going to shoot low so that we don't, do badly.
Right.
I'm gonna keep
set your expectations.
I'm gonna set my expectations
so you're
really
never
low.
disappointed.
Right. Yeah. I don't have to go try to write a musical on Broadway. I can just write a musical every year here at Adirondacks Camp.
Yeah.
And
they get celebrated.
I get celebrated. I'm the big head honcho, big fish in a small pond, and I don't have to worry about failing elsewhere. And
right. Well, there's something. It's just like interesting that. It doesn't, I don't know if it does it justice enough where it's like, yeah, you can find, there's something about camp that makes the original camp, that makes me feel like even though this is kind of ridiculous, it's like there's something really important for these people.
Yeah.
And they do it by showing all of these campers' experiences and how their experiences are changed and how they grow and how they learn because they're in this environment where people accept them.
Yeah.
And they're allowed to make mistakes and do, terrible things to each other and still be forgiven and still make something and feel celebrated.
Yeah.
In a way that I'm like, yeah, this is all stupid. This is all so stupid, but I get it.
Yeah.
It gives it a place. It gives these kids a place where they are growing and learning.
Yeah.
And theater camp tells you that that's what's happening. Yes. There's a whole song at the end in the show that they write that tells you, hey, this is a family outside of our family, but we don't really see it. Yeah. The only place we see it is in the relationship between those two characters.
Right, the two teachers.
And it's this like very dysfunctional, codependent relationship. Right. So it never gets to a point that makes me, I don't know, it tries to like bring in heart at the end in a way that I don't think is it's not as effective.
Yeah. there's an interesting, what you brought up is like we're watching in camp, we're watching kids learning. There's something that I'm willing to forgive bad behavior, especially if I'm like watching someone like really learn, and they're children. They're like they're 13, 14, 15. Like they're not adults. And where we're seeing in theater camp, we're seeing the adult side where I'm like much less willing to forgive that 30-year-old who's like being a real weirdo. It comes to when you talk about them like making these mistakes in camp, or like we're watching these kids grow, and it's I was thinking about how theater and theater educations make young people kind of try to step up their age game. They have to kind of toy around with things that are older than them, right? Mm-hmm. They have to kind of mature faster or pretend that they're more mature than they are.
Right.
And they're playing around with these adult ideas. In the end, I kind of thought a little differently about that, where we're actually watching, in camp especially, we're watching like a very sleepaway camp specific phenomenon, because I think about like my experience in a camp, and when you're like in a Lord of the Flies situation where it's just like this little society of people your age, where now suddenly kind of in a lot of ways you're the boss of your little, right. You have to create a little society and a little hierarchy, and now you're playing with these adult situations in how you negotiate romances and how you negotiate conflict, power right. dynamics, and it's like sloppy and
some real independent, like it's practice independence.
Yes, it's practice independence, and it's interesting how that intersects now with theater, because then you see in theater camp there's some instances where you're seeing the other side of it, where how often happens in theater schools, the adult authorities are hoisting that on people, where they're like, it's that classic Will Ferrell sketch from SNL where he's like casting the musical, the High School Musical. It's like, God. It was like a cut for time, so it was never aired, but it's on YouTube and it's hilarious.
Was it cut for time?
Yeah.
We just watched it so many times.
And it's like funny. Will Ferrell's like the high school theater director, and they're posting the cast list
for Bye
Bye Birdie, and he's like comes out and he has to he casts people, but he tells like the two of them, he's like, you two need to have sex before we start rehearsing. And it's like, that's not that far off, if not exactly something that I was told in high school. Maybe in jest, but like that is not fake. Right. It's ridiculous, and it's ridiculous in that sketch because it's like literally every single thing that a theater teacher had said that was inappropriate, all mashed into 6 minutes.
Moment, yes.
But every single one of those things is so real, and there's an interesting kind of like the idea that these like directors and theater teachers in college and in camps and in high schools are trying to infuse their students with this adulthood. And then to add to that, in this environment where they're already toying around with adult independence, and seeing it from the children's perspective, it's endearing, as you said. I'm much more willing to follow that. I'm not grossed out by it per se.
Right.
Whereas I'm watching theater camp from the perspective of the teachers, these two kind of really immature, codependent, icky people who are then kind of like hoisting this adulthood on kids, and it really gave me a really bad taste in my mouth.
Well, and it in theater camp they've I don't know, it asks the question that a lot of other things do. Like it's these are people who aren't the cream of the crop theater performers,
right? That
are acting like they are to their students.
Yeah.
They're imparting this wisdom in a way that these kids just like eat it up because they want it so bad.
Yeah.
And these counselors they feed off of it, and they're like, this is the attention I've always wanted. This is like finally I'm getting people who see my genius and my brilliance.
Yeah.
And I think it makes us look at those people and be like, are you fucking those kids up?
I know. It makes me at least look at them that way. Do you think if you hadn't gone to theater school or been a theater professional, like how do you think people who haven't done that would look at that?
I don't know. I don't know if they would take it seriously. This is my question. Like, okay, so the movie Camp is called Camp.
Very
because
campy.
It is campy.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it is like dripping with, it is ridiculous.
It's really silly.
At one point, like one of the characters has their jaw wired shut the whole
it's very, very
camp,
silly.
and at the end, like one of the counselors just like snips it right off. Like it's silly. At Anna Kendrick's, her character like poisons another character to get stage time.
So it's like really, really silly.
Ridiculous. And it is extreme in a way that theater camp is not really campy.
No.
They do like they're
pretty straight.
Yeah, it's like it's that like hyper realism, that like very Gen Z dry humor.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a little bit awkward. I mean, some of the best. I think that Fake Teacher was so freaking funny.
The teacher who lied on her resume, very, very funny. And that's an interesting thing too, because like she comes in as like she and the owner's son who like takes over the camp, who's like not a theater person at all, and is just like a TikToker. And they kind of are outside of the world a little bit, and they're like looking in. So we're seeing also like there are characters in the world that aren't within the world in a way that in camp they don't really do that.
Well, they do. I mean, with the main guy.
Oh, I guess the main guy is a little, yeah.
But they do it in different ways. Because like the main guy in camp, who's like the straight guy coming in, he's just like very innocent and like wants to learn and be there. And in theater camp, I mean, both the son grew up around Joan at least.
Yeah. Right.
So understands what this camp is and what these is like outside of the world, but still cares about it and knows it. And even this other theater teacher, like, must know something about theater.
Yeah, she didn't know what stage combat was. She asked all the kids. It was a very, very funny scene.
That's a good scene.
What is stage combat?
They're answering.
And they're answering in like these metaphors.
It makes the audience's heart skip a beat.
But being completely safe. She's like, okay, but how about less metaphor? What is it?
What would be the dictionary definition?
You learn to fight. Oh, that's it. This is very, very funny. But there are even some moments where she's interacting with the other teachers, and we get like a moment of, in a way that the son is very much like kind of trying to like play the game and trying to be his mom and trying to like inject some energy into it.
Of like he's playing this part where it's like, yeah, we see a lot of this like fake it till you make it attitude in this like new TikTok
on the GoPro.
These are business people there's a whole slew of these business people who aren't really business experts, but are like trying to be like business gurus on TikTok. And there's a whole bunch of them, and
they show up and want to invest, but they don't have any money. But the fake teacher has interactions with the other teachers to kind of give us that relief of like, okay, but you know this is all like weird, right? That sounds weird, what you just said. And everybody else is like all in it. Everybody else is like on board because it's just like these weird, I don't know what the word even would be, like disordered behavior of theater people is ubiquitous, you know? Like it's like, it's actually quite common. It's like going on Twitter and seeing everybody, going on X. And I'm going to timestamp this episode. The switch is recent. But it's going and seeing everybody behave like they're all borderline personality. And it's just like a thing that is
like when you're
everywhere.
Just like when you're on Twitter, you are more susceptible to like narcissistic borderline blah 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 behaviors. When you're in theater,
it's the same. You're liable to be
all of these. I mean, yes, narcissistic.
Yeah.
Like all these things.
Codependence, narcissism.
Yeah.
It's like endemic in the community, and everybody just kind of accepts it.
Right.
And then you have someone from the outside come in and be like, that sounds weird.
Yeah. Then
Y'all
every
are
10
crazy.
years, there's like a new slew that are like, all of those things that you guys did were horrible.
Right.
We're going to do better. And then you look at what they do and you're like,
It's
okay.
still wild. Yeah, it's still
you're
very
still doing
crazy.
things, guys.
Yeah, it's like just a different brand of crazy. You've just decided that that's what's acceptable. We've definitely just gone through something like that recently. Because even seeing what, as you say, like the difference between camp and theater camp, where it's like in camp, it's like a lot of focus on what people look like. The girl's jaw's wired shut so that she can lose weight, even though she's like not fat.
She's a child.
She's a child, and her parents have like wanted to lose all this weight. And
they couldn't convince her to go to fat camp, so
they wired her mouth shut.
Compromise was to
I know. I'm like,
her.
oh my God, it's horrible. And
it's horrible. I mean, it's
but
horrible.
it's like these focuses on, and like even how the idea of poisoning your competition. Granted, it wasn't just competition, and wasn't just for stage time. She was mean to her, but this weird codependent relationship with Anna Kendrick and this mean bully girl, she poisons her and takes her role. Like there are these things that are so kind of, they feel almost even old Hollywood in a lot of ways that today aren't the thing.
Yeah.
But now instead we have in theater camp, we've got the teachers who are, she thinks she's like a medium and talking to someone, and then you have like
she's a healer.
You have the costume designer who's like always talking about how like being very open about their feelings with the children in a way that's so strange that you're like you're supposed to be the regulated adult. I don't know why you're talking that way. Yeah, there and how kind of similarly just bonkers that is. Like it's just a different collection.
Right. It's
of
like,
neuroses. Instead
of not saying, you can't say Macbeth in the theater. That's a big thing. Like superstition. You can't say Macbeth. You can't say Macbeth. And that superstition is like not so much a thing anymore.
Right.
But in theater camp, there was a scene with the tear stick.
Oh my God, the tear stick.
And it's like using the tear stick to make you cry. And that's like, that wasn't a thing growing up, but it's not genuine, so it's cheating, like that kind of that is certainly like still that's
still a thing. Yeah.
Even though that like plenty of theater artists would be like, yeah, if you made it look like,
I mean, honestly, that little girl who used the tear stick, if she used a tear stick, I was like, if I hadn't known that
and hadn't seen it, then she brilliantly executed that.
Yeah, I thought it looked great.
If she applied it,
I know,
at some point,
and I didn't even know,
then she killed it.
And it looked genuine. Like, who cares? I don't care. It's not about you actor.
Yeah.
It's about everybody else who's watching you. You could feel everything, and it doesn't matter to the audience. Oh my God, I was feeling it so hard that time. Well, I didn't see it, so got to do it again or do it different or whatever.
So overall, if we're looking at theater camp itself as a movie, how do you feel about it?
I had a really hard time watching it for personal reasons. It's really hard to watch it, and I think that there are some storytelling wise, it's hard to know exactly what it's about or who it's about. It's not really. It is about those two.
Yeah.
Those two teachers.
Yeah.
And it's a nice, like, you've got all these like side plots. They just didn't really justify that many of them. They do kind of all intertwine, but when you have your first moment kind of be like, oh my God, we need the money for this.
Right.
For this thing. And like, they're not all going in. They set up the story to be Amy Sedaris' story and then immediately put her in a coma.
Right.
Or it would be the son's story. Like the son needs to do it. And then like, he's secondary and we're really just watching Ben Platt and his friend argue eventually because she gets on a cruise. Because we've got all these like side plots. We've got the side plot with the fake teacher. We've got the side plot with the son. We've got the side plot with the tech director, played by Noah Galvin. And that like they do kind of all intertwine, sort of. Like I don't think the fake teacher really comes into play.
No, she's just funny.
Yeah.
I mean, like, okay, they set it up in the beginning. It feels like it's going to be like a Wet Hot American Summer or a Drop Dead Gorgeous, something like completely like ridiculous documentary style.
Yeah.
You know, where they do this, like, oh, like, it feels very Christopher Guest.
Yes.
Like if in the
intro, in that first little bit, it feels like Christopher Guest.
Yes, very like they're going to see. They're trying to like poach people from
they're recruiting
the local high school musicals, and then like she goes into a coma. Like it's all very Christopher Guest at that point. I'm like okay.
Oh, I'm into it.
Great.
Okay, cool.
And then we forget that it's a documentary.
It doesn't need to be a documentary. The only thing we have is like these like subtitles that give us like information about stuff to frame what's happening.
Yeah.
But otherwise, like it did not need to be a documentary.
It didn't add anything. I didn't think.
Not at all. I thought that was a missed opportunity.
Well, they either could have leaned into the campiness of it.
Right.
Which I wished, I guess in the end, the storytelling was fine. Like the actual, like it wasn't confusing. We know what was going on. I understand what happened. It's all fine in terms of storytelling. But it's confusing in terms of like tone. It's tone.
The whole storytelling device is just like it's not fully baked.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was fine.
It seemed like almost too many ideas.
Yeah. Yes, it did.
But not enough ridiculousness.
Yeah. Like that. If you're going to be maximalist, you better be maximalist.
Yeah.
You can have a lot of ideas and you make it really, really silly. And you really like go all the way. Give us some talking heads. It's a documentary. And like they had time movie wise. It was only like an hour 20. You know, it was not a long film.
I want to go back and watch it partially because we had a weird theater experience.
We did have a weird theater experience.
So let's preface that.
Part of it.
We did get into the theater and then
there was a seating situation.
Everyone kept switching seats and it was very strange. And like 20, 30 minutes into the movie, we were essentially kicked out of our seats, which was very, very strange.
So I was like very off-putting and very stressful.
So that was part of it. Also, like, I mean, we both have personal feelings around theater, and that did, like, I don't think that
it makes me uncomfortable. Watching some things makes me roll my eyes. I mean, it's like we tried to watch Barry, the show on HBO about the assassin that becomes an actor in Hollywood. Or he's trying to become. I don't know how it ends up because we watched like 2 episodes and I was like, I don't think I can do this.
And not because there was lots of uncomfortable situations in the assassin.
No, like I liked the assassin part of it. The assassin characters were my favorite ones. It was watching the theater, the acting classes, and watching the actors.
That was hard.
And it's not even that it was bad. It was just good, and I didn't want to have anything to do with it.
Well, that was part of it. It's almost too.
It's
close.
It's too close.
Especially like watching those adults be too real.
Yeah. Watching them be kind of people that I don't like.
Yeah.
And that makes it hard.
And them being the heroes.
Right. And that in other circumstances, maybe if I wasn't so cynical a theater person, I would have liked it. Or maybe if I wasn't a theater person at all, I would have been like, what a silly movie.
Right, maybe.
But because I'm like, just...
If I compare it to camp,
which
I would say is... Storytelling is much more confusing. Very,
very,
very
confusing.
Weird.
Very, very confusing.
I don't understand what the story is.
Who's the main character? No idea.
I think it's Robin DeJesus because... They started
first person.
I think so.
Yeah, probably.
But you can make a
case for lots of people. Yeah,
in that movie, and it's a little bit confusing. It feels more of an ensemble piece.
Yeah.
Because of that.
Yeah.
But because it is just ridiculous enough, and starts with starts with heart
Yeah.
and keep sprinkling it in. And no matter how cheesy it got, it doesn't matter. There was like real issues that they were dealing with. I mean, just like starting it with something as intense as like
This kid goes to
kid
prom
gets
in
beat up as a
drag. Yeah.
Like, and that's something that, you know, any theater artist around that time, that's not so long after Rent.
Yeah.
It is near and dear to like the theater person's heart.
Yeah.
That you're going to really feel for those people, even when it's like weird kids doing weird things. And you're like, is the acting bad? Maybe.
Anna Kendrick was wonderful.
Anna Kendrick is wonderful. I thought Robin de Jesus.
And Robin de Jesus
Excellent.
was great too.
I was like, wow.
Yeah, they were both really good.
Sasha Allen.
Very good.
Underrated in that
very,
movie.
Very good.
Excellent. Excellent singing. Excellent acting.
Yes.
Perfection. Some of the rest of the kids, but I kept watching it being like, are they a bad actor or are they just playing an awkward preteen
because it was
teenager
like,
well?
Because it was like kids pretending to be kids pretending to be adults. Right? So it's like,
yes, if you break it down.
If you break it down,
kids,
you've got like,
but they're meant to be kids.
yeah, they're meant to be kids, just kids pretending to be adults.
They're play acting because they're at camp. Like
yeah,
you said.
like I said, right.
And
it's so interesting.
Sleepaway Camp puts you into that position where
you're
you
able
have
to exercise
act
these things. Yeah.
as an adult.
Yeah. And it makes it endearing for all those reasons, where you've got these kids that are kind of like going through it, and that it is so silly, and they have the kids singing and performing in actual shows that we know.
Right.
They've got Turkey Lurkey Time and the choreography, and they've got like original songs too. But
yeah,
they have that. They've got I'm Still Here because they're doing Follies. They've got Company.
Does theater camp have songs that we know? Some of them.
Only
yes,
in the
Defying
auditions.
Gravity, yeah, the auditions.
It was only in the auditions. Was only where we had it. And I kind of felt like that was missing a little bit. That was a missed opportunity.
Loved about camp is like we love watching the kids perform. That's just we love it.
Yes.
And we want to see
It's fun.
it.
I want to see Anna Kendrick sing
Ladies Who Lunch.
Ladies Who Lunch. I want to see her sing that.
Kills it.
Even though
so
she's
good.
like 14.
And it's perfect the way honestly, camp has some really, really funny and clever moments.
Yeah.
That like there's a moment where, speaking of the White Room, where Robin de Jesus' character, he is in Romeo and Juliet. He's playing Romeo.
Yeah.
His parents have agreed to come see him, even though they're like not super happy with him at this point, but he's like so happy and excited that his parents are coming. He walks on stage. His parents, the seats that he has saved for his parents are empty. So he like
kind of goes blank.
He breaks down and he goes into this scene. And if you're a theater person, you know it's a scene from West Side Story.
Yeah, he does the monologue.
Maria's monologue in West Side Story, where she like finds Tony dead.
Yeah.
And it's such a brilliant, like snapping thing that like it's a nod to Romeo and Juliet, which is West Side Story. West Side Story is Romeo and Juliet,
right?
But he's like playing the female character. There's so many. It's like weirdly clever and layered and smart while being just campy and stupid at the same time.
Yeah,
that I'm like, I am here for this. It's like weird cleverness and layers and like nothing.
There's nothing quite like that.
There's one big plot point in theater camp is Noah's character, the tech director. Mm-hmm. He like ends up having to save the show by stepping in for one of the campers.
Yeah.
And I don't get it.
No, me neither.
It doesn't. I want it to be I want the heroes to be the people we care about.
Right. And like we kind of do, because he's like the tech director and he like runs around and he's like working a lot hard, and he was like did some demonstration of like dancing and like apparently looked amazing, and I was like, well, that's gonna come back for us, but it feels very like convenient and Deus Ex Machina. It's like not very well. It's not very well set up. It is a very obvious set up.
It is
and payoff
well set up, but
it's not interesting because I don't know who this person is or why it would matter that this person is the one to like now go play, what do they say? Playing Elphaba and Wicked later.
Oh, yes. I do like the way it resolved. Cause it's kind of,
it's silly.
It's silly.
Yeah.
And I do like it. I do. And it, like, again, there are moments where I'm like, okay, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But they're like not connected.
They're not
and
connected. There were some campy things that happened. Like we've got Amy Sedaris going into a coma. We've got like basically every single thing in the end, or even all the little like descriptions, like the little documentary descriptions were all very, like some of them were very clever. It's like, she lied on her resume, you know. And
like used very sparingly.
Yeah. Because then it's like very straight. Besides that, instead of like going full ham, Christopher Guest, which it's a good topic. I mean, it just would end up being like, why not make a new Waiting for Guffman?
It's true. It is very Waiting for Guffman.
They need to save the camp. They need to get funding. Why not do that?
Yeah, that's part of it. It's like everyone's challenges are different challenges.
Yeah.
And even though they sort of align with the last show, it's not, it doesn't work. It doesn't
I'm just
come
trying to
together
think of
for
like
me.
what's like the problem that they're all like the problem that they all share, that they're like going toward. That's like, that's the grand kind of universal problem that they're all trying to manage. And it's kind of hard to pinpoint it. Because it's not necessarily about success. It's like,
I mean, part of it is like having that last show be a success because that's the thing that will save the camp.
Yeah.
But that's like,
where are your talents? Where do your talents really lie? Is like a little bit of it.
It's one of those, it's got a problem in the, like, we don't know what the conflict is for so long.
Yeah.
Like we know what the conflict is for him, for the son.
Yes. We think we know what the story is going to be about and it ends up being about something else.
And the way it's resolved, because it's like, it gets complicated. I don't know. It's like, it's weird where you're like, okay, well, that part's over. That part that we thought was the conflict, now it's a new conflict.
Yeah.
It's not really the same. We've just like cut and run and now we're doing something different.
Well, it's like if you have...
like each beat is like, it's so rushed. I think the pacing, that is like one of the things that I dislike the most about this movie. The pacing feels very strange to me. Yeah. I don't know what we're waiting for. I don't know what...
or what we've skipped. What are we waiting for and what have we skipped? Yeah. I think there's a mistake that people can make where it's like, if you're very clever, you can do a thing like, I don't know, The Light in the Piazza, where you think the story is going to be this like very classic love story between a boy and a girl, and it really turns out is about the mom. And you kind of find out early enough, but you don't really know it's about her until a little bit later, but it still tracks. Like you still can like go backwards in time and follow each moment and be like, oh, it's actually about her.
Right.
She's not just the narrator. And this is like, we start with one and then we're like, it's still a problem through the end that we've got, we need money for the camp, but the story's actually about this other thing entirely.
It's like a Christopher Guest type thing where it's like, or like when I think about like Drop Dead Gorgeous, there are moments where it's like, and then this happens and everything changes and it's done. You're like, what the fuck? Like Drop Dead Gorgeous is like really good at it.
Right. But that's because something actually changed.
But we're really following the one thing for so long. And when it changes and you're like, it's just like over? That's weird. What's happening? Wait, the story's, what is that? I love Drop Dead Gorgeous.
Yes.
We'll do that soon.
It's a good one. It is good. Wow. I mean, it's a good example of like the what you think is maybe like the initial inciting incident is really just the setup for the real inciting incident. Yeah.
But it feels there's an absurdity to that. I don't mind it, but it's not followed through because then the rest of like so much of the comedy is just like, this is so real, it's awkward and it's painful to watch. Like that's like that kind of like Gen Z type humor that is popular.
Yeah.
Where it's cringe, like that cringe humor.
Yeah.
And that's not what it's set up to be. And it doesn't feel, because I think I'm going to say that the main problem with this movie is that the brand of comedy changes so much that like you can't hold on to heart, you can't hold on to funny.
Yeah.
It keeps switching. Like the characters that are the cringiest are never the most endearing.
Right.
Because we're not watching everyone be cringy.
Right. Right.
Or some of the cringiness is not as actually cringy as other ones. Like I think Noah is maybe supposed to be cringy, maybe? I don't know.
Maybe.
Who knows?
He's not, but I don't know. And what about camp?
Perfect. No notes. I love it.
It's very endearing. It is not a perfect story. It's all over the place, but there's
the
something
storytelling is all over the place.
Campy, and it's like worthy of its cult status. It's so strange.
It's so out there.
And so it's like I'm willing to forgive it a lot.
Plus,
Stephen Sondheim is actually in it. I totally forgot about that.
Actually in it, and some of these people are fucking good singers.
Yeah, yeah.
Like Sasha Allen, every time she opens her mouth,
I'm like, God, it's like,
why is she in this? She's so good.
Yeah.
I mean, Anna Kendrick, like
she was already a Tony nominee.
Yeah, she was a Tony nominee. Which you didn't know.
I didn't know that.
She's one of the. I think she's the third youngest ever Tony nominee.
Wow.
For High Society. But you can tell, like at the beginning, she doesn't really stand out, but like when she snaps into her character,
my gosh,
you're like,
she's good.
Oh, she is gonna go places. She is excellent.
She's really good. Yeah. Yeah.
And this and it does feel like the characters because it's based off of these characters, like the actual actors who are in the movie are like playing out their own experiences or their own, like it's based off of their experiences in these. It does feel a little bit inside jokey.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like they're letting you in so much.
I mean, it is admittedly by their own admission, about their time growing up together. It's like an homage to their lives growing up in theater together. So it ends up feeling very, this is like your story. That's nice, but I'm not in it.
And it doesn't do it in a way that like really commits to that comedy that like Booksmart does.
Yeah.
It doesn't go full Booksmart because it does try to be campy.
Yeah.
When you can call Booksmart campy, but it's different. It's like a different form of camp.
Yeah. It's very good. It's
I think
funny.
Molly Gordon is in Booksmart.
Oh.
I think so.
With Noah. is that them together? The weirdos?
Maybe.
It might be. I don't know. We'll have to confirm. Or you can confirm for us. Yeah. I think that probably like Camp is a movie that I would rewatch every few years. I'd probably watch it and be like, that's a silly movie. Let's watch that. That's so so dumb.
There's like moving parts.
There's some heart in it. Whereas Theater Camp, I
think there was some
underwhelmed.
innovation in Camp. There's some things that they showed that I'm like, at the time, that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Theater Camp, no, nothing like that.
No.
There's nothing that is innovative or new or special or...
No. All right. Shall we move on to our superlatives?
Let's do it.
I think.
Do you want to do for both of them?
Yeah, let's do for both.
Okay.
Let's do our Oscar-worthy moment.
Okay. For both?
Yeah.
Okay. For Theater Camp.
Yes.
Let's start with Theater Camp. I haven't thought of these yet. Do you have one?
Yeah, I think for Theater Camp, I
know what I want. Yeah.
It's what's his name? Graham. Oh, I have to look up his name. The choreographer.
Like the dance teacher?
The dance teacher who is Nathan Lee Graham.
Nathan Lee Graham,
whom we saw in Hadestown, and excellent in Hadestown. And I thought he was very, very funny. And there's like the moment where they're like sitting in...
at the campfire?
Well, there's Around the Campfire is very funny, but it's like when they're watching the show.
The Joan Still.
Yeah, Still Joan.
Joan Still.
Joan Still. And he's like, oh, that it wasn't exactly right, but it was my, like, it's fine. Like there's some comment that he gave to the person he's sitting next to while they're like watching the show.
Yeah. What was
Oh God, what was it? It was, oh, I don't remember. It was so real. It was so like, oh my God, I know that comment. And it was very genuine. Exactly what I expect from a choreographer. Basically all around, they're like the choreographer of choreographers in the end. Yeah.
Cool. My moment. We talked about that, the teacher faking her resume, but that she didn't know what stage combat was. And the kid was like, it's like, you just teach us how to fight. And she's like, oh, that's it? Great. Is a great setup.
Yes.
Excellent setup. Because later there's a weird
it's like a mixer or something
between their camp and the local rival camp. Again, they didn't really set up the rivalry between the camps very well. But this was happening. This like weird mixer was happening. And at one point, like it was clear that these kids were like, we're not talking to the kids from the other camp. Like both sides were like, no, we're not going to do it because we're better than them. And then one of the campers from the Adirondacks walks over to one of the other ones and says something nice or something. I don't remember. And then another one of the campers walks up, turns him around and slaps him hard in the face. And I was like, what's
happening?
And then they like both turn and they're like, that was acting, something stupid like that. And there was a fallout, but I was like, but it was clear that, and then one of the other teachers from the other camp was like, that was inappropriate. And the fake teacher was like, it's theater, like grow up.
Yeah.
They're acting, grow up. But that, because I'm sure she just taught them to slap and gets like, it's not supposed to be a fake theater slap, but they just get slapped hard in the face and are like, that's stage combat. And I thought it was so brilliant. I'm like, that's hilarious.
Oh my God.
That's
very, so funny.
Very funny.
It was a good setup punchline for sure.
Great moment that was like really well set up and like followed through. Because it surprised me and I was like, what the fuck just happened? And I'm like, oh my God, it was the stage combat that she taught them.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
That's so funny. All right, camp.
Do you have one?
I do have one.
Go for it.
Anna Kendrick.
Okay.
When she poisons the girl and the girl's like vomiting on the stage because she apparently fed her like bleach, which is crazy. It's like you killed her. They're like, oh, we got to cancel the show. We have to cancel it. And she has this great little monologue where she's like,
oh, get real.
Get real. She's fucked. I'm ready. And the goddamn show must go on. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. And then she goes on and like pushes the girl off the stage and continues the song.
Rips her off the stage.
It's so funny. And then you get
excellent at it.
And and then you get to watch her sing Ladies Who Lunch, and it's great.
And everyone else is like,
what happened?
Fuck is happening?
But it's this great line, and she's like 14 and says this thing, and I'm like, oh my God, she's really good. She's gonna be something.
Yeah. I think weirdly the dialogue between the kids was very good in camp.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say this is so weird and stupid. The scene, there's like a weird scene. Robin de Jesus' character is gay and is convinced to sleep with one of the female campers played by Sasha Allen. And after that, the straight guy goes and like talks to her and is like, oh, I heard you slept with him. And the way that she is like kind of awkward about it, but it's like the way they talk to each other, they're not like talking in codes.
Yeah.
They're like, he is flirting with her.
Yeah.
which is like weird because he feels like weird and possessive. And like, it's like all of these like weird politics because he's already seeing another girl who's one of the main characters.
Right.
But like is maybe jealous of Michael,
right,
who's a character,
right.
but maybe is jealous because that he got with her and he didn't, like, and he's like the golden boy,
right.
but also is like proud of Michael. Like there's so many weird dynamics that are happening in that one weird little scene, and the way it like plays out where he's like I'm curious, but like it's like really hardcore flirting, and they end up making out.
Yeah, you can't. I can't let Michael just have this girl because now I want her because he's had her. It's like a weird.
Also,
like
I
a really
want to
good.
please everyone. Like it's so like his flaws were very good.
Yeah, it was. I feel like I know that person.
Yeah. I hate that character. Honestly, I remember watching it and being like, so many things in that movie make me so uncomfortable, especially in my like finding myself.
Yeah, because eventually he even like does that to Michael. That he like.
Yeah, he has like a weird.
He has a weird like flirty moment where he like wants that attention, and it's like
even that like is well done, where it's like not. It's not received, or it's like. He's like taking it and Michael's like,
what is happening?
Stop it.
What are you doing?
This is now weird.
Yeah.
You're being weird. Yes, you are charming. Yes, you get what you want a lot, but it's not going to happen. It's like, it's a nice, I like that. Like I almost chose that scene for this, but like those moments between characters are really, they're so weird and they feel really bad, especially to me when I was younger and like, awkward, and I'm like, oh, like they make me feel so weird and bad. But I think they are done well.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why they made me feel bad.
Unearned moment.
Mm-hmm. Start with theater camp.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say, unfortunately, missed opportunity. They have this kid who's playing an aspiring agent.
Yeah.
He's on the phone a couple times, but it's unclear why he's at the camp otherwise.
Yeah.
And he's never participating in any other scenes.
Yeah.
And it's not, there's nothing else as ridiculous as that I can't actually believe that that's happening.
Yeah.
They either needed to play it down because he was like wearing suits and on the phone all the time. And either they needed to make him more kid-like, but still good at the job.
Right.
And still like sneaking away and still participate. Like they needed to incorporate him more into that thing or blow up the kind of camp and absurdity around him for me to believe that was happening.
Yeah.
And because I like the idea and I don't think they did it well. I wish it went well because I don't think they need to cut it. There's something interesting about it, especially the best part of that is when he offers the teacher who faked their resume a job. I think that is very smart.
It's very funny. Yeah.
But that, again, it's like an absurdity that is lost in the rest of it where I'm like, literally everything else that happens to that teacher absolutely could have happened to that teacher.
Yeah.
She absolutely could have lied on her resume, walked in and been teaching a math class for the first time, never knowing what it was before. Absolutely. I believe it.
I believe 100%. That. 100%. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That none of the rest of like there's so little in that movie that happened that I'm like, that's actually ridiculous. Like that couldn't actually happen.
Yeah.
And that the agent, the little kid who was an agent, I'm like, they didn't do it in a way that I believed.
Yeah.
Or in a way that it was absurd enough that lived in an absurd world.
Yeah.
They didn't do either of those things.
I accept that. My unearned moment, I think, is Noah Galvin being kind of the savior in the end.
Yeah.
It just doesn't really like it's kind of you can see it from a mile away a little bit.
It is set up, yeah.
But it's that like, wait, why do we even care that he's the dancer that then ends up doing it? Just doesn't. Right. It doesn't.
They set
follow.
it up, but they didn't. Set up the importance of it.
I'm like,
or the,
okay, why is he the dancer? I don't get it. Like, unless we know that he
has no
wants,
relationship with any other characters.
No, that we like. I want to know that he had auditioned for years and never got it, or
Right.
Like there's something about like he retired because
Why do
he
we
was.
care about
why
him
do I care that
succeeding?
he succeeded at performing?
Yeah.
Did he even want to be a performer? And how do I know that? We don't know that. We weren't given that.
We get the hint.
We get the hint because he danced, but like
again, in camp they really told us like had characters actually saying what they feel and what they felt.
right.
And I think what they were trying to do in theater camp was be like, everyone's holding their dreams close to their chest.
Yeah.
Which is weird because theater camp is the place where you kind of like,
Yeah.
you talk about them.
You talk about all of your dreams. Yeah, for sure.
But one, I'm going to add is it my turn? Did I do?
You
No,
did
we
one,
didn't
right?
Yeah, I did. But in talking about theater camp, one thing that I was a little disappointed in is it's 20 years later.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing about the original camp movie is I'm like, they hint at gay things and they have a lot of relationships.
Yeah.
And they don't give us like a real gay relationship moment.
Yeah.
And in theater camp, I'm like, well, clearly like Noah Galvin and
Ben Platt
are
they're together.
an item in real life. And maybe not their characters, but like they have an opportunity to show gay relationships because they're important in theater camp. They like happen.
They're going to happen.
It's a moment where you get to act your independence, and part of that for theater camp, where there's lots of gay people, that's where you start these kind of like proto relationships.
Yeah.
And I just was
Missed opportunity
in both of them really, but in theater camp they didn't do anything.
Yeah.
There's not
a thing.
one gay romance.
Yeah. I wonder why that's happening now. Cause it seems to be more, it's like as we move into like pride everywhere and everything is more accepted, it's like, less accepted. Gays are being erased a little bit. Maybe I'm complaining a little too much.
Maybe it's connected to the whole like Snow White can't have a romantic interest.
Yeah,
that's a whole big. I don't know if you followed any of that drama. The new Snow White that's coming out. It's the actress from West Side Story.
Oh, okay.
She's playing Snow White, but she has spoken out. Like they had like a press conference where like, this isn't the old Snow White. She doesn't end up with a prince. She's not looking for love, and which is like fine, maybe, but like that is part of what the original like. A lot of people are like,
story.
What? It's okay, kind of, to make a different choice, but like. Because they're so strongly against it, people are like, but I do want that. And plenty of women and men want romantic relationships.
I would say probably most do, right? It's like there is a difference between saying that not every story needs to be a love story, for sure, 100%. It's not surprising that so many stories are in some way love stories because everybody's looking for relationships.
People are relationship driven. Then what is the important relationship that's driving this?
Yeah.
And that's fine. Please pick a different relationship.
Something else.
I love that. I love that.
We
Frozen
talked about that too. That's like it's
about the sister relationship. And it's like what a fun surprise.
Yes.
I love that Moana is not about
love. But it is about relationship.
Nothing about a romantic relationship. And that she's kind of a child.
Right.
And that like, but she has a relationship with Maui that's not romantic.
Right. And it's important that she build that relationship.
Yes.
That's the element of the love story genre that appears in like so many stories, even when they're not necessarily love stories.
People exist relationally. That's just how we exist.
One of those relationships is love. So it's not like a horrible thing that love happens in stories.
And that it can be a goal.
Yeah, it can. Absolutely.
It can be the thing.
It is so often a goal for human beings. So it is a little disappointing that's like not featured at all, when it's like that would be so. Someone would be stooping at theater camp. Yes. 100%. Oh, what about camp? Unearned.
Unearned moment in camp. I had one. Do you have one?
I had I mean, I guess like it's so out there, but like Stephen Sondheim shows up, and I just like Why is Stephen Sondheim there? Like, one, why is he in this movie at all? And two, Stephen Sondheim came to this like theater camp. I don't know. It was like so out there for me.
Yeah,
it's not really earned.
They pushed it. There's plenty of unearned moments in
yes,
camp.
it's like full of unearned moments.
Like one thing that I just like, you could have just done it better. So there's the disgruntled counselor who's a composer, and he gets into this like drunken stupor at one point, and the main character confronts him and is like, "What's your problem, man?"
Yeah.
And the drunken guy ends up passing out or throws up on him.
Oh my God.
Passes
yes.
out. And the guy's like, "Oh no, I have to wipe it off." Reaches down to pick up a piece of paper from the ground, wipes himself off, realizes it's brilliant compositions.
It's new music by this
written
man.
by this composer, and can see the genius in it right away.
No,
Picks
please.
up a handful, not all of it, just like random handful, and this is scattered around. He's not picking up songs that are clipped together.
Right.
He's picking up like collections of paper.
Sheets of paper.
And then he shows it to one of the other characters,
who immediately also knows.
I don't want to see it, because she knows it's that guy's.
Yeah, somehow
weirdly. But then he's like, "No, look at it." And she looks at it and she's like, "Oh my God." Realizing it's brilliant.
Somehow, just by looking at the music, which like there's like 3 people I've ever known in my life that are capable
that can look at
of anything
music
like
and
it.
be like,
and one of them I actually believed could do that. Others who
they
claimed
actually-
it, but one who
Right.
like, I'm like, no, you actually can look at that and be like, oh, it's beautiful. Just by looking at music, I'm like, how do you even?
No, I wouldn't.
No, you wouldn't. I wouldn't know.
No. Very good musicians. And even if that was the case, like if both of them was able to, no. And it'd be like, "Oh, this one doesn't look good." I'm like, "What are you reading the words? What part of it are you saying it's not good?" And then they like move to like, "Oh, we'll put on a rehearsal and we'll get it ready. Fully orchestrate this one song."
Yeah. And it's like, obviously the music is just like very simple chords with like a melody line, and that's
repeated.
it.
And honestly, what makes it good is like these kids kind of riff on it, and these musicians, and like it's not even like the best song in the show that they do. And I'm like, I'm not
unearned.
It's just I have to pretend that that's what's happening. They're skipping things, and I just have to pretend that like they've done all the things, but for storytelling's sake, they're just skipping these things.
Right.
I don't like it, but
Boo.
they can simplify it.
Yeah.
And be like, if they had just like sat at a piano and just like played through it and sang through it and been like, "This seems interesting."
Yeah.
Or like, "Let's see. This is interesting because we've never seen it before."
And he's so excited because he was like, this is new music, because he's never written anything since that musical, since the show that he knows.
Yeah.
And she's like, wait, there is new music. I'm going to explore it for a minute.
Explore it.
With his guitar. He plays a guitar. He could sit down with the
He
guitar
could
and
just
do
sit
it.
down and play it and sing it.
That would have been more believable, to be like, this is actually really interesting. And then just have them like jam out. Yeah.
Yeah. If he just had a guitar and one piano, and like that would have been much more interesting.
Yeah.
But alas.
Any other superlatives? How about cringiest theater moment?
For both of them?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Or just in general, like if there's like one moment in either of them that's just like, that's like the most theater thing I've ever experienced.
I think in camp, I would say it's that play in the dumpster.
It's like, it's a Cuban play, but it's like very Soviet. It's like very post-communist.
Like it's a communist, it's abstract. It's not.
It's a protest piece. It was probably played in, so it has like lots of levels and meaning. It's like so abstract and avant-garde and so weird.
And this and this director is Cuban and very passionate about the piece, and it's just like yelling at these young people to do it right.
Yeah.
When there's no reason they would have any knowledge of what this show was about and why this would mean anything. And you would have to, first of all, what a weird choice for a theater camp.
Yeah, for sure.
What a weird choice. But it's real because of course they chose a 3-person show to fill out things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They have to have options like that where they're like, well, we need this we can only get about this many, but we like want to feature this many people throughout the camp. So like we'll have this weird avant-garde thing that like anyone can be featured in because it's like both a throwaway and super important at the same time. And you're like, and as a theater artist, you don't know what it is. You don't know if it's supposed to be, this is like the next brilliant, amazing thing. But also like everyone would be like, that's fucking weird. And like, we don't know what that is. And like, we don't want to be in that.
No,
we want the dance number in Promises.
Right. Yeah.
But some people would be like, oh no, I get to be raw. And like, I'm in the 3-person play. That's like, it's just that thing where people are like, you're letting people be narcissists.
Yeah.
While judging each other.
Mm-hmm.
That's my one.
That's your one. I think for me, it's when the two directors are arguing about like where to place stuff, and it ends up being like a personal beef. Yeah, in theater camp, where Ben Platt and his friend are they're arguing about like where to put. Like, and it's like establishing, like we established his world is on this side of the stage, so it's going to be on that side of the stage, and that's all it's going to be.
That was very uncomfortable.
And I was like, oh my God. And it's like
Because
the co-directors, but it's also like always just personal beef coming out in the space. So it's like, because that ends up being what it is, where it's like they're arguing about where to place the thing on the stage, and it's like not even about like what's better for the play. It's about like he's mad that she's like been absent.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's just the most theater thing. It's horrible. I hate it.
Okay, what about your best musical number?
Best musical number. I think probably the opening of Camp with, what's her name?
Sasha Allen.
How
can I see you through my tears?
Because she's so good. And she sings again later too, though, doesn't she?
Yeah, she sings in that.
But it's just like a little line, right?
She sings. She's like the featured singer in. I don't remember what that song was called. Weird songs. In the song that they fully orchestrate,
right? Whatever
that is.
Yeah. Because it's like she's so good.
Come out and play the game. Do you want to come out? I don't remember what it's called. Captain Planet.
Planet something. I don't know.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, but I think that one.
She's so good.
She's so good. What about you? Best song?
I feel obligated to do one from theater camp, but I don't like them as much.
No, I don't.
In theater camps, Jones Still was like the best.
Yeah,
song. The ending,
that one where she like did a throwaway on her little like harp or like lap harp thing, but they redid it and it was good.
It was good and it was nice.
It was cute. Yeah,
and again, that was a moment where they're like telling us, they're like, see the importance of theater. And
yeah. The theater camp. We're not family, but we are kind of, aren't we? Don't you think? Aren't we kind of? A little bit. I
don't know. The Promises. I think that's always very exciting.
It's so funny. Turkey Lurkey Time.
Turkey Lurkey Time
is
good. So good.
And they do the original choreography.
And the original choreo. But I might actually pick Here's Who I Am, Here's Where I Stand, whatever it's called. The song that she
at
sings
the end, after she gets her braces taken off, that's very good too. Yeah.
She's very good.
Yeah.
Like you don't hear her sing the rest because she's
her jaw's wired shut. So then she gets to sing
at the end. I'm
really
like, that's a really nice.
Yeah.
What a fun thing to do.
Huh. Yeah.
Yeah.
I accept that.
Cool.
All right. I think it's time to wrap up.
Okay.
Shall we?
Let's do it.
Thank you all for coming to watch Then a Moment. I'm Pavi Proczko. And remember, if you really want to make a splash at a get-together, just stage some stage combat.
And I am Colin Funk, and remember, awkward theater children are much more endearing than awkward theater adults.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
Thank you.
Goodbye. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to this episode of Then a Moment, a Pavitas production project, hosted by Colin Funk and Pavi Proczko. This podcast is produced by Chicago Podcast Studio. Our opening cartoon was created by Gloriou.
And our theme song was composed by me, Pavi Proczko. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite listening platform. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at ThenAMomentPod, all one word, for updates on new episodes and behind-the-scenes content. If you have any feedback, comments, concerns, or kudos, you can email us at thenamomentpod@gmail.com. Please rate and review us wherever you can. It would help us out a bunch. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.